right, so those were your top stories. Let's get started with the conversation with Richard Quest.
Good morning to you.
Very good morning.
Good morning.
Mining, labour unrest, job losses, that's really been top of the agenda in South Africa. How often do these issues come up with international names?
Well, obviously since Marikana, the mining industry and the mining question has been very much at the forefront of investors' minds. And not only because of industrial unrest, but you've seen the commodity prices, you've seen what's happened to gold, that phenomenal run-up in gold price, which then, of course, had a 9% slash in one day. If you put it all together, it's not just gold, it's also platinum as well. And if we look at the numbers, you'll see exactly what's happening in mining at the moment.
So cost increases across the board is basically what we've been seeing, Richard. And in fact, it's not only a South African problem, it's a global problem. But I mean, 10% platinum price increase, compare that to everything else.
Look at the underlying trends within the platinum industry, and you start to see exactly what's going on. Indeed, as you said, 10% platinum price increase, but compare that with a wage increase of 12%. So you've already got a 2% differential from price versus wages. Factor in electricity up 25%, of course, the cost of getting the stuff out of the ground, and you're now starting to see an environment where it's almost as expensive to get it out the ground as it is to sell it.
Productivity. This is the big issue in South Africa, where in fact we start seeing productivity increasing globally, but in SA over the same period, 12 years, it's down almost 40%.
Right. A perfect storm in an industry. You've got prices being overtaken by the rise of price being overtaken by the cost of production, and you've got lower productivity. It's not surprising that the employment situation is also pretty grim too. If you take a look at the employment numbers, you'll get an idea of what's happening, and mining job losses.
And this has been the biggest issue because mining accounts for around 5 to 6% of the economy. One would have hoped that we would have seen an increase in jobs over the past 12 years, but it hasn't. Mechanization, Richard, is the other big issue
Absolutely.
as well.
Mechanization has taken its toll. 500,000 jobs, give or take, in 2013, but a fall in job numbers of roughly 1% a year. And yet, mining remains one of those core industries that's always in the news, and not just in South Africa, but elsewhere too.
Of course, the natural resources, it's one of the biggest things that people focus on when they come to South Africa. So it's such a pity we don't make enough money out of this. And if you look at the mid-1980s numbers in terms of employment, almost 1 million people were employed back then. So this is really sad. I mean, the fact that we're mining a lot more.
Well, now hang on. It's sad in the sense of the employment numbers may be down, and it's certainly worrying that a 39% reduction in productivity at the same time. But it is inevitable in these high industrial enterprises that you're going to get the same amount out with smaller amounts of people. And of course, the phenomenal level of consolidation which has taken place in the industry. Look at the names. Just look at the names of those companies that have been involved. Now, Rio Tinto, BHP Billiton, global names, which of course will move production where they can get the money best. And of course, Glencore, Xstrata.
And they're all slashing jobs. That is the reality, and this is because costs have increased by around 15%. Coupled with low demand, Richard, from China, is this a worry as well for you?
Hang on. You're trying to break the economic rule. It's all about how much does it cost to get it out the ground versus how much can you sell it on the international market. And if the two do not add up, you've got to make cost cutting. And talking of job losses, never mind those job losses at the bottom of the mine, there were some very impressive job losses right at the top of the company in Glencore Xstrata. Just only a few months after the company was merged, it was announced at the Swiss board meeting that the chairman had lost his job, and all the Xstrata directors were also voted out by the shareholders. This is a case of Glencore grabbing hold of the company.
And BP, former CEO,
Tony Hayward,
making a comeback.
He's back. Tony Hayward, BP chief executive, booted out after Macondo, or resigned after Macondo. Now he's back, chairman of Glencore Xstrata.
Right, before we wrap up with regards to mining, how often does violence come up with regards to, you know, investors' fears when it comes to South Africa? Are you seeing a massive trend? But then again, we're seeing similar things playing out globally. So it's not only a South African story, Richard. This is the reality.
The violence in the mining industry in South Africa is a huge story. And the possibility of further disruption and violence at Marikana, which is what people are talking about as the two unions duel it out, is one of the issues that, of course, has put prices under pressure.
Right, we're going to a short break. When we come back, we take a look at South African Airways and, of course, the 10th long-term strategy announced over the last 13 years. Richard Quest will give us his views on this. Don't you go anywhere.
News that moves. eNCA.com.